Hello everyone, I welcome you all for the course Engineering Metrology. So this is the first lecture on the topic surface texture. So the contents of the today's topic are recalling of the screw thread measurement and gear metrology, and then we'll provide the introduction to the surface texture, and then we'll discuss what are the factors that affects the surface roughness and what are the reasons for controlling the surface roughness, and then the terminology used in surface texture, and then we will summarize the today's topic contents. So this is the first lecture in the screw thread metrology. So in that we understood what is screw thread. So screw thread is a helical ridge that is produced by forming a continuous helical groove of uniform cross section on the external or internal surface of a cylinder or a cone. If the screw thread is formed on a cylinder, then it is known as the a straight or parallel screw thread. If the screw thread is formed on a cone, then it is known as the tapered screw thread. So these screw threads are the important machine elements used in screws, bolts, nuts, studs, tapped holes, and other power transmitting devices. And then we have seen the what are the general applications of the screw threads. So screw threads can be used for fastening purpose, used for joining purpose, for clamping of the two elements. We can use the screw threads, and controlling the linear movement. We use the cross slides, upper slide, and transmission of the motion and power, like lead screws. Converting the rotary motion into translation. So in the case of kinematic systems, and position control in the instruments, precision measurement of length, that is in micrometers. We use the screw threads and act as a worm. Screw thread act as a worm, and exerting heavy force in the mechanical presses. We use the screw threads, and conveying and squeezing of the materials, like a plastic injection molding machines, screwed conveyors. We use the screw threads, and in the mass production, we use the screw threads for automatically feeding up the work into the machine. And then we discussed the elements of screw thread. So what is the axis of the thread, crest of the thread, root of the thread, flanks of the threads, what is the angle of the thread, flank angle, pitch, lead, measure diameter, minor diameter, mean or effective diameter or pitch diameter, and what is the depth of the thread, axial thickness, pitch line, what is addendum, dedendum, and also lead angle, and a helix angle. And also we understood what is threads per inch. And in the second lecture, so we discussed in order to measure the accuracy of the screw threads, so we need to measure at least 5 important elements. So in order to check the accuracy of the produced screw thread, we need to measure at least 5 important elements. So like we need to measure the major diameter, we need to measure minor diameter, effective diameter, pitch, and angle of the thread form. So these elements must be checked, and the method of gauging must be able to cover all these important elements. Suppose if there is a error on the major diameter, what will happen? So the interference with the mating threads will occur, and reduces the flank contact. In case of internal threads, the wall thickness can be reduced so that the screw thread can be weakened. Right, the strength of the screw thread can be reduced. So if there is any error in the minor diameter, that will cause the interference with the mating threads. Similarly, it also reduces the flank contact, and also it reduces the cross section of the root, so thereby weakens the strength of the thread. And errors in the effective diameter will determine the amount of tightness or looseness or slackness or interference between the flanks of the mating threads. And pitch and angle errors causes a progressive tightening and interference on the assembly. And this pitch error and the angle errors are directly related to the effective diameter. And then these pitch errors are classified into progressive pitch error, periodic pitch error, drunken error, erratic or irregular errors. So in periodic pitch error, the successive portions of the thread are either longer or shorter than the mean length of the thread. So this type of that is a periodic pitch errors occurs when the tool work velocity ratio is not maintained constant. Okay, so to find out the accuracy of the screw thread, so we need to measure all these 5 parameters at least. So in the third lecture, so we understood what is the effective diameter and what are the methods used for measuring the effective diameter. So effective diameter of the screw thread is the diameter of the pitch cylinder, which is coaxial with the axis of the screw and intersects the flanks of the threads in such a way that so as to make the width of the threads and the width of the spaces between them is equal. Okay, so effective diameter is diameter of an imaginary cylinder that passes through the pitch line. So we use the various methods for measuring the effective diameter. So we use the 1-wire method, 2-wire method, and a 3-wire method. And then the thread micrometer method we use. So in this, the thread micrometer will give the direct reading of the effective diameter. So in this, we use the different sizes of the adjustable annuals that depends upon the pitch. So we can choose the adjustable annuals, and then we can directly use for measurement of the effective diameter. And theoretically, we can use one wire method. So it is used if a standard gauge of the same dimension as the theoretical value of the dimension over the wire is available. So in this case, only we use the one wire. So this is the screw thread. We use only one wire. So we can use the different diameter wires. So we place it in the grooves of the screw thread, and then we will measure the effective diameter over the effective diameter of the screw thread. So effective diameter is calculated as capital D plus or minus difference of D1 and D2, where D1 is the dimension over the standard setting and D2 is the dimension over the screw thread. So D is the size of the setting gauge, and if D2 is greater than D1, then we use the positive sign, and if D2 is less than D1, we use the negative sign. And then we discussed the 2-wire method. So in this we use the 2 wires. So one is placed on the here, and another one is placed in the opposites of the grooves, opposite of the grooves. And this is the measurement under the wires. So this reading will give the measurement under the wires, that is T, and this is the measurement over the wires. Measurement over the wires, that is capital M. So this is the pitch line. Pitch line. Okay. So this gap is called. So let us. This is P by 2, and this is also P by 2. So here P is the correction factor. Correction factor. So E is equal to effective diameter. Effective diameter E is equal to, so T plus this P by 2 plus P by 2. Okay. T plus P by 2 plus P by 2. That is T plus P. So where T is the dimension of the wires, so that we can calculate T value as capital M minus this. This is half of the diameter, and here also we have the diameter by 2, half of the diameter. So total is 1 diameter. If you subtract from the capital M, that is 2D, right? Not D. So it is. So we need to calculate the T value. This is the T under the wires. Under the wires, capital M minus this value is total is D. This value is D, and this is also D. Okay, it is not D by 2. It is D and D. 2D. So by subtracting the 2 times the diameter from the measurement over the wires, we will get the T value. And M is the dimension over the wires, and D is the diameter of the each wire. And if P dash is the pitch of the thread, then we can calculate for Whitworth thread. This is the value. These values are obtained by this formula. Okay. So this is the expression for measuring the correction factor. P is equal to P dash by 2 cot x by 2 minus D into cosecant x by 2 minus 1. If you substitute x is equal to 55 degree, that is for Whitworth thread, theta or x is equal to 55 degree. X is equal to 55 degree. So upon substitution, you will get P is equal to 0.909605 times the P dash minus 1.1657 times the diameter of the wire. Similarly, for the Whitworth thread, x is equal to 60 degree. So upon substitution of x is equal to 60 degree in this expression, we will get correction factor P is equal to 0.866 times the pitch minus diameter of the wire. So here P is the difference between the effective diameter and the diameter under the wires. So the diameter under the wires is determined by using this formula. S is the diameter of the standard, R1 is the reading over the diameter of the standard, and R2 is the diameter over the screw thread. So by using this formula, we can calculate the T value. And the P value we can calculate using either this formula or by using these formulas, P formulas. Upon substitution of P and T, you can calculate what is the effective diameter in the 2-wire method. So the drawback in the 1-wire method and the 2-wire method is, so in the case of 1-wire method, we use only 1 wire, and we are measuring the diameter over the wires by placing the micrometer. Okay, so the axis of the micrometer and the axis of the screw thread may not be perpendicular to each other. That is the limitation in the 1-wire method. Similarly, in the 2-wire method, so we are placing the 1 wire on one side and another wire is on the other side. Okay, there is a stability problem with the 2-wire method also. So in order to overcome this, we use the 3-wire method. So this is more accurate method compared to the 1-wire and 2-wire method. So in this, we derived the expression M is equal to E plus D into 1 plus cosecant theta by 2 minus P by 2 into cot theta by 2. So here E is the effective diameter. We need to find out. M is the measurement over the wires. D is the diameter of the wire, and theta is the angle. P is the pitch. So if it is for a Whitworth thread, theta is equal to 55 degree. Then the depth of the thread is equal to 0.64 times the pitch. And therefore effective diameter is equal to D minus 0.64 times the pitch. And if it is metric thread, theta is equal to 60 degree. Upon substitution, you will get E is equal to D minus 0.6495 times the pitch. And what is the best size of the wire? So we can calculate diameter of the best size of the wire is equal to P by 2 into secant theta by 2. If it is the metric thread, theta is equal to 60 degree. If you substitute theta is equal to 60 degree, you will get best size of the wire is equal to 0.577 times the pitch. And you can also calculate what is the minimum diameter is equal to 0.505 times the pitch, and the maximum wire diameter is equal to 1.01 times the pitch. And also we discussed the toolmaker's microscope. So it is one type of multifunctional optical measuring machine equipped for external and internal length measurements, as well as measurements on screw threads, profiles, curvatures, and angles. So in the lecture 4, so we discussed the gear tooth, gears. So gears are the toothed wheels commonly used to transmit the power or motion from one shaft to the another shaft without any slip. And then we discussed the different types of gears, and also we discussed the terminology used in the gear tooth vernier gear tooth. And the methods used for measuring the gear tooth thickness is also discussed. So in the lecture 4, we discussed the gear tooth vernier caliper method and cardal thickness method. So we have the other 3 methods also: constant chord method, base tangent method, and measurement over the pins or rollers. So in that we explained the gear tooth vernier caliper method. So practically, and also we can also derive the expression to calculate the cardal tooth thickness. W is equal to Nm sin 90 by N, and cardal addendum D is equal to Nm by 2 into 1 plus 2 by N minus cos 90 by N. So in this, the D and W is depending on the number of teeth on the gear and also module. Okay. And then we discussed the constant chord method. This method is overcomes the limitations of gear tooth vernier caliper method and base tangent method. So in the base tangent method, the length of the base tangent is calculated as Nm cos pi into pi s by n minus pi by 2n plus tan pi minus pi. So in the base tangent method, the length of arc BD is theoretically we can calculate using this formula. So this also depends on the number of teeth on the gear and also the number of teeth considered for the base tangent length. So here only one parameter we need to calculate, that too it is depending on the number of teeth. Similarly, the gear tooth vernier caliper method also depends on the number of teeth. But whereas the constant chord method, this is independent of the number of teeth. It depends only on the module. So the cardal tooth thickness we can calculate as, that is cardal addendum, D is equal to M into 1 minus pi by 4 into cos pi into sin pi. So this value we can set on the gear tooth vernier caliper method, gear tooth vernier caliper, and then we can use for measuring the gear tooth thickness for any number of gears having any number of teeth. And then in the lecture 6, we discussed the measurement of over the rollers. So in this, the rollers are placed in the space between the pair of gear teeth. So that will be the convenient method for checking the tooth spacing and the pitch diameter. And then we discussed the Parkinson gear tester. So this can be used to measure the variations in the center distance of the two gears. So in this, the gear being inspected will be made to mesh with a standard gear, and the dial indicator is used to capture the radial errors. So the standard gear is mounted on a fixed frame, while the gear being inspected is fixed to a sliding carriage. So in this, two gears are mounted on mandrels, which facilitate accurate mounting of gears in machines, so that a dial indicator will primarily measure the irregularities in the gear under inspection. Coming to the today's lecture, that is introduction to the surface texture. So in mechanical engineering, so the engineering components are manufactured by either a primary manufacturing process or a secondary manufacturing process. So what are the primary manufacturing process? Like casting. Second one is forming. And the third one is joining. So the forming process consists of the maybe forging operations, extrusion, rolling, and the joining operations maybe welding, and also soldering operation, etc. And then these components are further subjected to various machining operations, that is secondary manufacturing process, machining operations or heat treatment for getting the required geometrical surfaces. So whatever may be the manufacturing process used, it may be either primary manufacturing process or secondary manufacturing process. So it is not possible to produce a component perfectly smooth surface. That is a geometrically ideal surface cannot be generated using the either primary manufacturing process or secondary manufacturing process. So there always exists some imperfections and irregularities on the produced surface. So these irregularities are departs from the absolute perfection, that is from the ideal form, to some extent as vertical deviations of the measured surface. If these deviations are substantial, then the surface is called the rough surface. If the deviations are minor, then the surface is called the smooth surface. So the irregularities on the surface are in the form of a succession of hills and valleys, varying in both the height and the spacing. So these irregularities are usually termed as either surface roughness or surface finish, surface texture, or surface quality. So the surface roughness is due to cutting tool marks or from the grit of a grinding wheel. So we can produce the irregularities. So these irregularities are responsible to a great extent for the appearance of the surface of a component and its suitability for an intended function. So the surface texture is greatly influences the functioning of the machined parts. So for many engineering applications, the surface finish can have a big effect on the performance and durability of the parts. So the surface texture affects the various properties of the properties like aesthetic appearance of the produced surface, and corrosion resistance affects the surface texture, wear resistance, fatigue resistance, lubrication, initial tolerance, ability to hold the pressure, load carrying capacity, noise reduction in case of the gears. So all these are influenced by the surface texture. Suppose this is the irregularities produced on the surface. If the irregularities are larger in size, okay, they corrode easily and so subjected to the corrosion. If the surface is smooth, then the corrosion is less. Similarly, if the irregularities are large in size, so they may subjected to one surface may be rubs the other surface. So more wear takes place. If it is smooth surface, wear is less. Okay. And rough surfaces generally wear more rapidly and have a greater friction coefficients than the smooth surfaces. So typically, the roughness is the dependable predictor of mechanical part performance. So as irregularities tend to form nucleation sites for breaks or corrosion. So the surface finish requirements depending on the functional requirements of the components to be assembled. So even if you want to produce a high class of accuracy of surface finish, so the cost involved is also high. So more expensive surface, more expensive is required for producing the high class of accuracy. And what are the factors affecting surface roughness? One is vibrations. Vibrations of the machine tool or vibrations of the machine causes the surface roughness. If the vibrations are large in magnitude, then surface roughness is high. If the vibrations are small in magnitude, the vibration is less. And the material of the workpiece, the microstructure of the material also affects the surface roughness. And the type of machining used, right? Whether we are using the milling operation or drilling operation or CNC machining operation, okay, type of machining. And the rigidity of the system consisting of a machine tool, fixture, cutting tool, and work. If the machine tool has more rigid, then surface roughness is less. The cutting tool, work, and fixture, all these are more rigid. So then the vibrations will become less and the surface roughness is also good. And the type of the cutting tool used and the form of the cutting tool used and the materials of the cutting tool and the sharpness of the cutting tool also affects the surface roughness. And the cutting conditions, that is speed, feed, and depth of cut also affects the surface roughness. And the type of the coolant used will also affect the surface roughness. So we need to control the surface roughness. So why we need to control the surface roughness? Because the different applications demands different surface texture. Suppose if you consider the heat exchanger tubes. So in order to transfer the heat in better, right, the surfaces should be slightly rougher than the highly finished surfaces. So as the surface is rough, the surface area increases, so more heat transfer takes place. So in that, in the heat exchanger applications, so we need a considerable surface roughness. Similarly, in the case of brake drums and clutches, work best with some degree of surface roughness. So if there is no surface roughness between the brake shoes and the brake drum, so the brakes will not apply. Similarly, in the clutch plates, so if there is some degree of surface roughness, so we can use the brake drums and clutch plates effectively. So the surface of the parts which are subjected to high stresses and load reversals are finished to highly smooth surfaces. Otherwise, the failure of the parts takes place. So because of load reversals and high stresses generates on the highly smooth surface. So failure of the parts can be avoided by machining to highly smooth surfaces. So the reasons for controlling the surface structure are: one is to improve the service life of the components and improve the fatigue life resistance of the components, and you can reduce the initial wear of the parts by controlling the surface texture, and to have a close dimensional tolerance on the parts, and we can reduce the frictional wear by controlling the surface texture. And we can reduce the corrosion by minimizing the depth of irregularities. If the depth is more corrosion. If the depth is less corrosion. And aesthetic appearance can be improved by controlling the surface texture. If the surface is smooth, highly finished, then the surface should be will be appeared as a good surface, right? Aesthetic appearance is good. If the produced surface is with major irregularities or larger irregularities, then the surface is not appeared with aesthetically. Suppose if the surface is not smooth, what happens? The moving parts can heat up, and also sometimes freezing takes place. So excessive surface roughness on the shafts and also in the bearings in electrical household applications, they may consume more power. So in order to have this, we need to control the surface texture. Now we will discuss what is the terminology used in the surface texture. So what is surface texture? So it is the repetitive or random deviations from the nominal surface. So here the nominal surface is the surface which is having zero imperfections. So geometrically perfect surface. So that forms the pattern of the surface. So here the surface structure encompasses roughness, waviness, lay, and flaws. So surface texture is a combination of roughness, waviness, lay, and flaws. And what is roughness? Roughness is the due to finer irregularities, right? So surface roughness is the surface having finer irregularities. So these finer irregularities are resulting from the inherent action of the production process. So like a tool charter or transverse feed marks that produces the finer irregularities. So finer, if the surface is having finer irregularities, then we can say that the surface is a rough surface. So how do you measure the roughness spacing? So roughness spacing, it is the distance between the successive peaks or ridges that constitute the predominant pattern of the surface. And what is the roughness height? So it is the arithmetic average deviation, arithmetic average deviation in micrometers and measured perpendicular to the center line. Measured perpendicular to the center line is called the roughness height. Roughness height. And what is the traversing length? So traversing length is the length of the profile necessary for the evaluation of the surface roughness parameters. Surface roughness parameters. So the traversing length may include one or more sampling lengths. And what is sampling length? So sampling length is the length of the profile necessary for the evaluation of the irregularities to be taken into account. How many irregularities we are considering in the length of the profile. That is called the sampling length. It is also called the cutoff length. And what is the lay? So lay, it is the direction of the predominant surface pattern. So it is determined by the production process used for the manufacturing of the components. So we use the symbols to represent lays of surface pattern. And what is waviness? So waviness is the measurement of the more widely spaced component of surface texture. Okay. So in the waviness, the irregularities whose spacing is greater than the roughness sampling length. Okay, the waviness sampling length is larger than the or greater than the roughness sampling length. So this waviness occurs because of the errors in the either machine or work deflections causes charter, residual stresses, vibrations, or heat treatment causes the waviness. So waviness is an error in form due to incorrect geometry of the tool producing the surface, like vibration and chatter. And what is the spacing of waviness? So it is the, so here you can see here waviness spacing, right? That is waviness width. Okay, it is the width between the successive peak values or valleys. Waviness, spacing of waviness. So this is the peak value and this is the, right, again it is a peak, again it is a valley. So it is the width between the successive peaks or valleys. Successive peaks or valleys. So this distance is called the spacing of waviness. What is waviness height? So it is the distance from a peak to valley. So this is the peak point and this is the valley point. So this vertical distance is called the waviness height. And what are the flaws? So these are the irregularities that occur in isolation or infrequently because of specific causes, such as scratches, cracks, pits, and blemishes. Blemishes means a small mark or flaw which spoils the appearance. So this occurs at irregularly, not at regular intervals. At irregularly, this will occur. Surface finish. So surface finish is referred as the overall texture of the surface, and it is a combination of three factors such as surface roughness, surface waviness, and lay. So this is about the today's class. So we will summarize the today's topic contents. So whatever may be the manufacturing process used, it may be primary manufacturing process or secondary manufacturing process. So it is not possible to produce a component with a perfectly smooth surface, that is a geometrically ideal surface. So the imperfections and irregularities always present in the produced surface. So the manufactured surface always departs from the absolute perfection, that is ideal form, to some extent as vertical deviations of the measured surface. The irregularities on the surface are in the form of a succession of hills and valleys varying in height and spacing. So these irregularities are usually termed as the surface roughness, surface finish, surface texture, or surface quality. So this surface texture will affect the many factors or many properties such as appearance, corrosion resistance, wear resistance, fatigue resistance, lubrication, initial tolerance, ability to hold the pressure, load carrying capacity, noise reduction in case of gears, etc. And also, what are the factors affecting the surface roughness? One is vibrations will affect, material of the workpiece will affect, type of machining will affect, rigidity of the machine tool, fixture, cutting tool, and work will also affect, and the type of the cutting tool material, form of the cutting tool, and the material of the cutting tool, and the sharpness of the cutting tool also affects. Cutting conditions will also affect, that is speed, feed, depth of cut will also affect, and the type of the coolant used also affects the surface texture. And the reasons for controlling the surface texture are: one is for improving the service life of the components, improving the fatigue resistance, reducing the initial wear of the parts, and maintaining the close dimensional tolerance on the parts, reducing the frictional wear, corrosion, reducing the corrosion by minimizing the depth of the irregularities, and maintaining the aesthetic appearance. Suppose if the surface is not smooth enough, then what happens? The moving parts can heat up and they can freeze. So we need to control the surface texture. Suppose if there is excessive surface roughness on the shafts and bearings, what happens? They will consume more power for running. So surface, the terminologies used in the surface texture are surface texture. What is roughness? Roughness spacing, roughness height, surface finish, waviness, spacing of waviness height, lay and floss. So these are the references we followed for preparing this lecture. Thank you.